Hey guys, another little video tutorial for you today. We're going to focus today on the three branches of American government. You've probably been hearing about those three branches since you were in third grade. Essentially, our founding fathers had pretty good insight, and they said, you know what, instead of having just two branches of power, which are going to fight back and forth like cats and dogs for whoever is more powerful, let's instead have three. Basically, the very first branch that the Constitution of the United States deals with is the legislative branch. Notice the L. That helps me to remember the legislative branch creates the laws. Okay, and another name for the legislative branch is the Congress. Okay, Congress is divided into two houses, the House of Representatives and the Senate. The Senate is the one that is equal for everyone, basically two representatives from every state, meaning there are 100 reps in the Senate today. And in the House of Representatives, it is based on a state's population. The executive branch is where basically the chief executive of the United States rests. Now, who do you think that is? Yeah, the president. You got it. He is, or she, we'll see, whether the executive basically is in control of the United States. And the judicial branch basically is your Supreme Court. Sounds like judge, right? Yeah, the judge, the Supreme Court, the judicial branch. Okay, so let's go to the first branch again that deals with that is dealt with by the Constitution of the United States. That is the legislative branch, also commonly known as Congress. It has two houses, both the Senate and the House of Representatives. Our founding fathers actually predicted that the Congress would be the most powerful branch of the United States government, and for that reason they outlined the powers of the legislative branch in Article 1 of the Constitution. The second branch would be the executive branch. Okay, that is the branch that most Americans are more familiar with. You know, they can rapidly name the president, but they have a hard time dealing with members of Congress if they were forced to name any of them. And then thirdly is the judicial branch, also commonly known as the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has 9 chief justices or judges. Now, going back to that very first branch, the legislative branch or Congress. The most important power that Congress has is to make laws. And of course, you guys should have known that all laws start off as proposals called bills. While we're right here, though, I also would like to point out something that a lot of people tend to forget. Powers of Congress is the power of the purse. Basically, Congress has the checkbook for the United States of America. Whatever we decide that we're going to spend money on, it is up to Congress to approve. So they have what is called the power of the purse. If we go to war, Congress determines how much money is going to be spent for that war. Please don't forget that. Recently, you know, a lot of Americans are forgetting that, oh, the president is spending money on this and that and the other. The president cannot spend any money without Congress's approval. The powers of the executive branch, okay, that is going to now be the chief executive or the president. The most important power granted to the president is the power to enforce or carry out laws. Now, no, the president does not have a badge and he does not roll around in a cop car. The president does this with the DEA, the FBI, the CIA, the NSA, or the DEP. Another arguably important power granted to the president is that of commander-in-chief, which essentially means that they make the calls when it comes to our military. Other powers that are granted to the president are the power to appoint to the Attorney General, foreign ambassadors, heads of governmental agencies such as CIA, FBI, NSA, etc. But all these appointments have to be approved by the Senate. Along with the president's power of appointment goes the power to appoint a Supreme Court justice should a seat need to be filled. And we're going to come back to that idea. Okay, so the powers of the judicial branch are kind of basic here. Okay, the powers of the Supreme Court were established in 1803 in a court case called Marbury versus Madison. We talked about this in class, or will be talking about this in class. It is known as judicial review and simply means that the Supreme Court has the power to decide if laws passed by the President and or Congress are constitutional, because if they aren't, they got to go. So, now let's get down to this little bit of debate so you can see how these branches can fight back and forth. In February 2016, Justice Scalia, a justice of the Supreme Court since 1982, passed away. He was considered a conservative justice and probably leaned toward Republican ideals. Since Barack Obama, a Democrat, was president, it became his job to appoint a replacement to the Supreme Court. this appointment would have to be confirmed in the United States Senate. Remember, senators approve the appointments. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, who is a Republican, said that Obama is doing this not with the intent of seeing the nominee confirmed, but in order to politicize it for the purpose of the election. So he basically said that Obama is just trying to appoint a nominee just so that he looks good in an election year. Now, yes, of course, Obama was not running, but of course Democrats were hoping that a Democrat would win. He also said that the Senate would revisit the matter when the next presidential nominee comes along, and basically said that the people should have a right to have a say. So ultimately, this is where we're at. Now understand why this is so important, okay? Because it's very rare that we see such a battle going on like this. The Republicans controlled, notice ED at the end of that one, 5 Supreme Court justices, or I shouldn't say that they controlled them. They have no control once you've been appointed to the seat. But the idea is former Republican presidents, George W. Bush, Reagan, Bush, another Bush, it's not George W., okay, appointed these last 5 justices of the 9. That means that Republicans were helping to control, or Republican ideals were being played out in the Supreme Court. Now, Democrats only had 4 justices, but I want you to take a look here because Barack Obama appointed one in 2009 and Barack Obama appointed another one in 2010. It is now 2016 and Obama might actually appoint a 3rd? Well, this is where we're at. Politics at its best. If President Obama appoints another Supreme Court justice, it will be his 3rd appointment. That's an awful lot of influence from one president to have on the Supreme Court. And it could also lead to 5 liberal or Democratic justices to sit on the Supreme Court when there had been 5 Republican justices. Okay? And when it comes down to deciding whether something is constitutional, unconstitutional, it just takes a simple majority. It needs 5 justices to think alike to make that decision. So, how many senators have to vote to approve a nomination? Remember, the Senate has to sit down and they have to vote and say, yes, let's say the President Obama has nominated someone for the Supreme Court. How many senators have to vote yes to approve it? A simple majority, 51 to 49. Remember, there's 2 senators from every state. That means there's 100 members in the Senate. And it just boils down to a simple majority. 51 of them would have to say, yes, we approve Obama's nomination. But here's the problem. You got to understand what the Senate looks like today. Republicans control the Senate. In the Senate right now, Republicans have 54 seats. So what's the likelihood that a couple of these Republicans are going to vote the other way and vote with Obama? Not good. Democrats are only holding 44 seats in the United States Senate. Remember, Obama is a Democrat. And independents hold 2 seats. So you can see that there's not a very good chance that these nominations are going to get through by Obama. So for right now, we're probably at a stalemate. Technically, Obama is within his right as president to make an appointment. But remember the job of the Senate. They have to approve these appointments. So, because Obama is in his last year as president, the Republicans are calling him lame duck. And they are essentially saying we will wait to see whoever wins the election in November of 2016 and see who they appoint. So, just a quick recap so you guys can see the powers that these governments have going back and forth. The executive branch does have say over the legislative branch, where the executive branch can propose a law, they can veto laws, they can call special sessions of Congress, they can make appointments, and they can negotiate foreign treaties. The legislative branch, on the other hand, can override a president's veto. They can confirm or deny executive appointments. They can ratify treaties. They can declare war. They can appropriate money, basically the power of the purse going back there. And they can impeach and remove a president. So just kind of going down through this so you can see some of the back and forth over the last, I don't know, decade or so. 2 decades, I guess it would be. On January 8th of 2016, Obama vetoed a bill from Congress that changed much of his Obamacare plan. On November 8th of 2007, the Senate voted to override then President George W. Bush's veto on a bill that would help to fund the Army Corps of Engineers project. So Ultimately, this is Congress, and it was a big one. The Senate was in favor of voting against Bush, 79-14. Overrides require 2/3 majority, so it would have to have been 67 of them. So, December 19th, 1998, the House of Representatives voted to impeach then-President Clinton on the grounds of perjury. Perjury means he lied to a grand jury, and obstruction of justice. The Senate acquitted President Bill Clinton Friday, February 12th, of both articles of impeachment. The perjury charge was defeated with 55 not guilty votes and 45 guilty votes. So, ultimately, just so you guys can see, there's been some back and forth with our government over the last couple of decades. A 2/3 vote, or 67% of the Senate, had to vote to remove a president. That would have been required to find him guilty if he were going to be removed from office, and that did not happen. So, last but not least, little worksheet here for you so you can see. If you want to pause this, just take a quick look. But look, ultimately the executive branch does have a check on the legislative branch and on the judicial branch. What can the president do to help control Congress? Well, the president can propose laws, they can veto laws, they can call special sessions of Congress, they can make appointments, and they can negotiate foreign treaties. What can the president do to check the judicial branch? They can appoint federal judges. They can grant pardons to federal offenders. Okay, so what's the legislative's power over the executive and the judicial branch? Once again, the legislative branch can override a president's veto. They can confirm executive appointments or deny them. They can ratify treaties. They can declare war. They can appropriate money. And they can impeach and remove a president. As far as controlling the judicial branch, they can create lower federal courts, they can impeach and remove judges, they can propose amendments to overrule judicial decisions, and they can approve appointments of federal judges. In the judicial branch, ultimately the power is the same whether we're talking about Congress or the president. Basically, they just wait and to see whether a law being passed by either Congress or president is constitutional. If it goes against the Constitution, it's declared null and void. So, ultimately, guys, that's basically it for today's lesson. I hope that it cleared up any questions that you might have had about the three branches of the United States government and their powers and that idea of checks and balances. Okay? All right. We'll see you soon in class. Take care.